Hey guys, how you doing? Dr. Thompson here with Simplify Health Center, an affiliate of the Wellness Way. Happy Monday, guys. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are doing awesome. Today, a little bit different topic is question and answer. One of the reasons why I just didn't have time to prepare a topic because I was out of town all weekend. So I figured let's make sure that we're consistent and just be able to answer some questions that people have. So we're streaming right now on Facebook at Dr. Nathan Thompson. We're on Facebook at Exemplify Health Center. And then we're also on YouTube right now, streaming live at Dr. Nathan Thompson, also on Instagram. So we're going to take all these questions and make sure if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, I can bring these questions up actually on the screen so you guys can see what the question is. So if you guys are joining me, make sure that as you say hello and make sure you also let me know where you're watching from. And we got about 40 to 45 minutes for Q&A. And so guys, any questions that you have, make sure that you fire away. So Myrta, hello from Toronto, Canada. Hope everything is sane and going well in the Great North. If you guys are watching as well from Instagram, make sure you say hello. Let me know also where you are watching from. I know that we have people watching from Malaysia. We have people watching from the Philippines. We have people from California. That is awesome. Question from Instagram. My grandson had open heart surgery and had 3 strokes since. What could be causing this? That's a good question. I would say blood clots. So there is something that is clotting the blood, and that can be actually due to the surgery, I would say. Just my opinion. All right. Watching from Montana. Hello from McMinnville, Oregon. Awesome, guys. From Omaha, Nebraska. I flew over Omaha recently, and it is just flat all the way through. But yeah, check clotting when it comes to open heart surgery and having clots and strokes and things. I would actually probably say it's some kind of clot coming from somewhere. So again, as we wait for people to jump on and go ahead and ask your questions. I know that we've had a couple of questions. And again, if I miss them, guys, I apologize because I know even on Instagram, things are going through quite a bit. So interesting, guys, while we wait for people to pop on, coming up on Wednesday, I'm going to see an interesting premiere. It is the Fauci movie that was put out by, I believe, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I'm going to be speaking at that premiere here in the Chicagoland area from the Children's Health Defense Fund that Robert A. Kennedy actually started. So I've spoken a lot on behalf of the Children's Defense Fund that he started. Interesting enough, he's going to be running for president as well. And he's got some great takes on that. And guys, I would really, really challenge you. Go and watch that documentary on Anthony Fauci. All right. Because I know it's going to be good. I haven't seen it yet, but I followed this all the way from ground zero, from all the way. And you guys go back and watch some of the videos I've done on vaccines and things like that and why it has been just an absolute catastrophe. Because if you look at how it works and if you look at the whole idea of bypassing barriers and why it's been an utter disaster, guys, you can go to Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, VAERS, and you can go to that website and look at just the number of reported events that have taken place. And it dwarfs any other year of adverse events and things like that. Okay. All right, let's see if we can get some questions here as well. And I'll actually talk about go back and forth here on Instagram as well. Now, if I get one from Instagram, I'll let you guys know. What is your opinion? This is from Instagram. Topical steroids used to address allergies that got worse after the first COVID vax. Guys, this is in the literature as well. Is breaking out in hives, urticaria. And it's actually documented in the literature. And guys, the biggest thing that I would tell you is there's an immune response that's taking place. You need to get it tested. And that's the first and foremost. And that's basically what they did is they said, yeah, steroids are what you have to do. But guys, there's an immune reaction that's taking place. And that's actually not uncommon with the COVID vax, but with any vaccine. The reason why is you're having an immune reaction. Remember, anytime that you have any kind of anytime that you need to be exposed, the exposure should be at the barriers and they should not bypass the barriers, which is why there's so many side effects with certain vaccines and jabs and things like that. So the first thing I tell you is, in my opinion, don't get it again, and don't keep stimulating the immune system, and then figure out how to calm that immune system down, especially. Okay. Is AFib curable after an ablation? Let me see if we can show this up here. Okay. Guys, the biggest thing that I would tell you, because again, I can't give you medical advice, but anytime that people have AFib or anything like that, one of the things that we would be looking at is looking at upper cervical, because of the vagus nerve and how it innervates the heart. The other thing they would be looking at is minerals, guys, as well. Actually look on Mayo Clinic, look at PubMed, and they'll actually talk about when you become like potassium deficient, is that it can cause atrial fibrillation. The thing is with potassium is that's something that you can't measure. Don't let any doctor tell you that you can measure your potassium in your body, because they measure in the blood, and that only accounts for 2% of total potassium, because it's actually within the cells and not actually in the blood. The other thing is sometimes I wonder if some of the blood pressure medications are actually messing up people's sodium potassium balance, because we look at the mechanism of action of a lot of blood pressure medications, not all of them, but a lot of them actually strip the body of sodium and help you try to retain potassium as well. And they actually tell you don't have anything with potassium in it. But again, your body does need potassium. You need just as an RDA, like 3,500 milligrams, sometimes even more. So I would actually be looking and see, hey, what's been going on as far as your potassium, sodium, even magnesium balance as well. So that's a great question. All right. Chill Coffee. Oh, awesome. It's good to always see you on here. What's your opinion or knowledge on prescribed testosterone for men, and the same for steroids? Okay. All right, so I've done a lot of videos on steroids and testosterone replacement therapy. Just remember, this is testosterone responds. Hormones always respond, although they'll make you, if you're low in testosterone, you'll feel lousy, but that's not the reason why you feel lousy. So this is true with men, men, if you have two testicles and you haven't had an injury to the testicles, then you should have the ability to be able to produce hormone. And a lot of the time, if you're not producing testosterone, then you're missing the constituents of it. Some of the constituents are things like zinc, or you have a signaling issue from the brain to the testicle. The other thing is you could be taking that testosterone and you can be aromatizing it into estradiol. You could actually be taking testosterone and converting into dihydrotestosterone. And some of the biggest things, guys, that will lower a man's testosterone is going to be elevated blood sugars. It's going to be alcohol. Is going to be problems with the liver, like fatty liver. And another thing that's going to be too is even skimping on sleep and things like that. So that's why when we look at this, we check people's blood sugars, we check their insulin levels. We actually just don't look at testosterone, which I know that a lot of people advertise for. Holy cow. Anybody who's advertising just to check your testosterone levels, please run away from them. Because if we're truly doing a male panel, is what we call it, we are looking at not only testosterone, but we are looking at their estradiol levels. We are also looking at their dihydrotestosterone. We are looking at DHEA. I mean, we're looking at everything, but also checking their inflammatory levels, C-reactive protein, homocysteine, looking at their insulin levels, A1C. We're looking at it a whole heck of a lot deeper. And guys, we see it all the time. A man's testosterone jumps up 300-400 points just by changing their lifestyle. But a lot of these clinics just say, just take testosterone. Remember, if you have a bad lifestyle and your body says, we're going to lower your testosterone, and then you artificially give it to you, then that's when bad things happen. And that's when people do, have some issues with how it converts into estrogens, how it can burden the liver, and how it can cause some other issues for that. So as far as testosterone, first thing I tell people is start to really, really restrict your sugars, get your blood sugars down fast. And then also make sure you're getting, guys, 7-8 hours of sleep. You skimp on sleep and that can lower your testosterone by 10%, even within like 5 or 6 days, because some of your testosterone contribution is coming from your adrenal glands as well. So great question. All right. Trying to get off of Omeprazole. I was put on it for chronic gastritis. What do you suggest? Okay, so guys, one of the things as far as some of these gastritis that I would say is or these proton pump inhibitors is just the whole theory in medicine that says that the reason why you have reflux is because you have too much stomach acid. Okay. I want you to think of that because stomach acid is a function of rest and digest. Look at the two different divisions of your nerve system, and you have the part that speeds it up, known as fight or flight, to help you get out of a crisis, help you get out of emergency. Think a bear is chasing you, and it's an appropriate stress response. But when you go into fight or flight because a bear is chasing you, stomach acid production dramatically goes down. There's no need for it. In fact, digestion stops because that's the last thing that you need. In fact, you actually need digestion to stop, and you need your blood pressure to go up, and you need to pump nutrients, oxygen to your extremities. That's why you have a big stress response with cortisol and adrenaline to help you get away from the bear. And rest and digest actually helps with bowel movement and actually helps with the production of stomach acid. So I want you to think of this. Anybody who says the body's producing too much stomach acid, then essentially what they're saying is you're too much into rest and digest. You're too relaxed. And that is not the case, is that we're never too relaxed, we're too stressed. So the first thing is when people start to have problems with their stomach, when they start getting like an H. pylori infection, remember, that's normal flora, but it actually crawls up into the stomach because of too less stomach acid. It actually lives down in the pyloric sphincter, and it's normal bacteria, but then it can cause an infection when the environment is preferred, being in a low stomach acid environment. And so doctors then put them on acid reflux medication in order to lower stomach acid even more. And guys, when you do that, here's the problem. Okay, this is the problem. This is why it's has been linked to dementia, because it blocks acetylcholine at the stomach, which also can block production at the brain. Acetylcholine is responsible for memory production. Okay. The other thing is you lower stomach acid, you're not going to be sterilizing your food, which is why you can start to get infection take place, either in the stomach or infection in the gastrointestinal system, because the stomach acid that sterilizes your food, which means you eat things, don't sterilize your food, and you can develop infection within the small and large intestine. And the other thing is you can even start to get infection within the lungs as well. So these things are not good. They're not good to be on long term. And so if someone does have gastritis, first thing I would say is, okay, is that due to infection? Guys, if you do have some kind of H. pylori infection, one of the things that you can do is fast for about 3 days and don't secrete any kind of stomach acid whatsoever, and then take some things in order to calm down, especially if you have some kind of ulcer. You can take things like licorice, you can take things like aloe juice that helps the stomach. But when it comes to, hey, I just get acid reflux all the time, we have people who are able to get off acid reflux medication all the time. Number one, help them to get into rest and digest. And any kind of physical stressor, even on the spine, can cause it. Mental stressors as well. But the other thing that can be another chemical stressor can be the presence of food allergies. Okay. Food allergies are huge. That's why people say, hey, I only eat certain foods and I start to get acid reflux. We'll test your food allergies. Test for an IgG allergy response, not the type the doctor does the skin prick test or anything. That's called an IgE allergy. We're talking about IgG allergies, which is a different type of allergy response. Once you can do that, then you'll actually will see that reflux and things like that, guys. That's one of the first things that we help people to be able to get off of. And it's one of the first things that you can actually correct. Okay. All right. From Instagram, we have the question, what is your opinion on organ supplements? The answer is I love them. Okay. I love organ supplements. Probably, guys, the best organ supplement, and we give them to people quite a bit when we've gotten to them to the point where we're really trying to help rebuild, organs to get sufficiency back to it. So, which is why in our office, we always start off people 90% of the time is we start them on liver. And just think of this, what's in liver? A lot of great things. There's going to be zinc in liver. There's going to be copper. There's going to be liver enzymes within liver. There's also going to be one of the highest sources of vitamin A. There's going to be high in your fat soluble vitamins, vitamin E as well. There's going to be things like CoQ10 that are going to be in the liver. And there's not going to be a lot of trace minerals that are in that people just aren't getting. What's really interesting is I would say probably 20% of people after they've been on liver for 4 to 8 weeks, and they don't even notice this by say, tell me about your night vision. They're like, oh my gosh, it's gotten so much better. I didn't even realize that, because at night they're seeing the halos around the, around the lights, and they don't see very well. And that is actually vitamin A. They call vitamin A retinol. Remember retinol, retina, because it's so important when it comes to eye health as well. So organ meats, I love it. Liver, we'll give people, women, female glandulars contain ovaries. We'll give people, male glandulars with, testes, prostate. We'll give some people immune glandulars that have things like spleen. It's going to be the highest amount of iron that will be in any kind of food whatsoever. So we'll put them on it, especially if they're anemic, and we'll figure out why they're anemic as well. So I absolutely love even immune glandulars too, which will contain things like thymus and things like that. So remember, we come from the idea of like can help to heal like, especially. Okay. So that's a great question, guys. The short of it is that I absolutely love organ supplements, and at some point, everybody gets it in some way or some form, just depending on the issues that they have. Okay. Someone asked about histamine issues with foods. This comes from Instagram. Okay. So I had an interesting interaction on TikTok, which I don't really care if it gets banned or not. It's the wild west of social media. But someone who has MCAS, the histamine issues. So, and you probably have heard of that too, having a histamine intolerance. And guys, everybody says you need to be on a low histamine diet. And I'm saying, well, think of this is what was responsible for histamines. That's actually your immune system. And where is there a histamine response? So the histamine response is actually within certain types of cells. And where do a lot of those cells actually live? Gastrointestinal system, underneath the skin. So why do you see, people who have some kind of histamine sensitivity? Why do you see it in the GI system, and why do you see them break out underneath the skin? Now, you do have certain cells that discharge histamines even in muscle cells as well, but those are in a lot lower amounts. And so that's why I would challenge any person who has a histamine sensitivity is that they probably have gastrointestinal barrier dysfunction that's taking place, that's then allowing those proteins to leak through, in which the immune system is seeing those things. And when it's not supposed to, that's why stomach acid is so important. And that's why actually repairing the gastrointestinal barrier is so important. And then calming down that immune system, guys. This is why if you look at someone who's got a really massive response from histamines, it's getting driven like crazy. This is why things like Albesia can help so much. But usually these people have a lot of gastrointestinal dysfunction that's taking place. Get a stool test and then get a food allergy test without question. And you will see that these things over time will start to get better and better and better. Okay. So best treatment for a chronic sinus infection. This comes from Facebook. If someone's got a chronic sinus infection, one of the things that I would say, thank you for the question, Carol, is what is driving that infection? A lot of times people will have sinus issues. They can have some food allergy issues. They can be having things that are causing a lot of mucus secretion. So I would be checking both IgE and IgG food allergies. And people sometimes are going to blame dairy. But I would say, yeah, it can be if you have a big allergy to dairy. I remember someone had a sinus infection for ongoing sinus congestion for 4 to 5 years. She had an IgG and an IgE allergy to both. When she got rid of that, we fixed some of the things up. She didn't have any of the sinus issues as well. But the other thing is too, is just consider your environment. There's certain things you might be breathing in that is causing an inflammatory immune system response. For example, like mold. So if you have mold, and we're not even talking about environmental mold, we're talking about water damage mold. You're constantly, it's in your house and you're breathing it in. Your sinuses are always going to be plugged up and they're always going to be full. But then I want you to think of this: if your body is secreting antibodies and causing mucus formation to try to clear it out, well, I want you to think of, what do bacteria love to live in a dark, moist, mucousy environment. So that's just setting it up for having some kind of secondary reaction to a bacteria, especially. That's why I would look at food allergies, look at yeast overgrowth can cause it as well, and also look at something that's environmental, like mold, like with water damage type mold and things like that. So thank you so much, guys, for the question. So if you are joining me, right now, make sure you just ask a question. I'm trying to filter through about 3 different platforms all at once. Advice to my 18-year-old daughter going through topical steroid withdrawal. Okay. I would say this is, figure out the reason why she's on the steroids. And I'm guessing if she's on a topical steroids, there is something that is obviously reacting to the skin. So is it a problem with exposure on the skin, reacting to that? But usually if something is reacting to the skin, it's reacting from somewhere else. So always think barriers, and where the barriers get the most damaged is actually within the gastrointestinal system. And that's why, guys, when people say, oh, I have acne, I cleaned up my diet and my skin got so much better, there's a reason for it. So if there's something that's flaring up on the skin, you want to look deeper and look at all the other barriers to see where that barrier function, how good that is or how bad that is, because I guarantee you there's probably something that's affecting the gastrointestinal system. And this is why, guys, this is known when you look at things like some of these common, like, unfortunately they're common, but they're not normal, things like eczema or psoriasis, acne, things like that. Some of them, I want you to think about it. You have to ask yourself, when did it start? Now, when on earth did it start? And what's interesting, I might get in trouble for saying this, is how many times did eczema start at 12 months or 18 months or 24 months or pre-kindergarten, if you know where I'm going with this, okay? Because these are things that you did not see as often 50 or 60 years ago. And when you look at the amount of dermatitis and things like that, you're seeing this way more often than you did. And all you do is have to Google a what schedule from the 1960s and see what the schedule has done over the last 60 to 70 years. Okay. So that's why, but if she's going off of the steroids, if you're not getting to the reason why, then one of the things that's going to happen is the steroid wears off, the immune system just picks back up, and it's just doing what it thinks it's supposed to do. And that's why you have to actually handle the trigger and things like that. I want to actually give a shout out to Christine Brown. She's from Burnaby, British Columbia, Canada. I know that she's posted such nice comments over the years, like nothing but wonderful things. But she says this: big thank you. Your help has saved my life. Someday I'll tell you my story and how you helped me recover from the you-know-what, which we've helped people with that because of the perspectives change. And I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you so much, Christine, from Burnaby. I believe that is a kind of a suburb of Vancouver. So I always appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for watching, and we sincerely appreciate you too. I know we have so many people from Canada who say, how can I get help? And I'm like, until your prime minister resigns or is fired, then there's not a whole lot we can do. But once things relax, or you get someone who knows what they're doing in charge up there, then we will have Wellness Way offices up in Canada, because there's so many people obviously that need help as well. Cindy, it's always good to see you. Keep going strong. My friends, let's see this one. 9-year-old started her cycle today. Seems way too early. Your thoughts? Oh, yeah. 9 years of age is way too early. People will ask me quite a bit And they'll say, when is the appropriate age in order to have for a woman or a girl to start her menstrual cycle? And I'll say the later the better. Okay. You have so many eggs that you can. And so when people say, when am I going to hit menopause? I always ask the question, well, when did you have your first period? And the earlier you have, the earlier you'll go into into menopause. You probably will be into the mid to later 40s, 45 to 47 years of age. And if you start a little bit late, then you're going to be looking at 50, 51, or 52. So a 9-year-old who has started her cycle, I will tell you this is when you see kids that are hitting their puberty for boys, menstrual cycle, for girls, the first thing that I would look at is how much sugar are they consuming? The reason why I say that is because, and I'll give you an example. If you look at power lifters, okay, if you look at power lifters are all about putting on mass and size. And that's why they eat a ton of food, but I also eat a lot of sugar because remember, initially insulin is very pro muscle growth. Okay. So insulin is very pro testosterone as well, very pro androgen. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's good for them because you see power lifters and probably because they're also taking exogenous testosterone, maybe, but that's why they don't live very long because even though that builds a high amount of muscle, it's also very inflammatory as well. So that's why liver issues, fatty liver, and things like that can take place. So if a girl is hitting her menstrual cycle at 9 years of age, my thought is how much junk food and sugar are they consuming? And the reason why I say that is because you can even measure this on a blood test, DHEA, DHEAS, and I'm sure that is probably extremely high. And DHEAS is actually a precursor to things like testosterone, and testosterone can down convert into estradiol as well. And so those are the things that can start stimulating a menstrual cycle early. And so that's why it's like the later, the better. What's interesting about my kids is I hit puberty, if we can say this, I hit puberty very early, like when I was about 11 and a half. So I was always well developed. I mean, by the time that I was in 8th grade, I was like 6 foot and 160 pounds. But what's interesting, I ate a lot of sugar. I mean, an ungodly amount of sugar. I didn't care. I just thought I'm an athlete. I'm just going to burn it off. But what's interesting is with all of my kids is that they have hit puberty a lot later. So instead of like 11 and a half, my oldest son basically hit puberty at like 14, didn't really even start growing much until 14. My youngest son is past 12 years of age, isn't even close to hitting puberty as well. And that's because they don't get the junk food, the pop, they don't get all of that stimulates high levels of androgen production that would then stimulate early puberty. So that's an awesome question. Thank you so much for it. Okay. All right. From Instagram. What do you think of childhood vaccines? There seems to be so much coming to light about the dangers of these high toxic loads, especially in babies. I'll give you my opinion on that. That's based in actual physiology. And it has to come with this. If you understand physiology of the immune system, you'll understand that vaccines from a physiological standpoint do not make sense. So everybody argues, they argue about the ingredients. And yeah, there are some ingredients. And the reason why that's bad is because, when people say, because there still is mercury in some of the vaccines. And people say, well, you get a higher load in eating tuna. And I'm like, yeah, but here's the difference. You eat tuna and it's protected by the gastrointestinal barrier. But what happens if you bypass the skin barrier and go directly into the body, okay, into the blood or the lymph system? That's the difference. And the fact that you are arguing that makes me realize that you have no idea about how the body works, okay? So anybody who's trying to argue that, but I never actually try to argue about the toxicity aspect to it. I actually argue about why it doesn't make physiological sense. Doesn't make sense at all. The reason why, and people have woken up over the last 2 to 3 years when it comes to the you know what, is they're saying, wow, there's so many reactions that are taking place. And I'm like, keep looking and you will see a lot more, even going back into time. Because physiologically speaking, any infection needs to first start at the barrier, usually at the lung barrier, or if it's a gastrointestinal bug, at the GI barrier. And then you have to have an antigen presenting response from a macrophage, and then to helper T cells, and then to the B lymphocytes in order to produce antibodies, and then the killer T cells in order to help with overcoming, like if it's a virus, for example. But a vaccine bypasses all of that and goes straight to the production of antibodies, thinking that that is going to fend off an illness, but that's just part of it. It's not the whole entire part. And the thing is without constant exposure to that antigen, especially when it comes to these B lymphocytes, is that without constant exposure, the antibodies actually go away. And this is now why they actually will say that you need to get a booster no matter what it is. And in fact, I will tell you this is if you haven't had a measles booster, and the last one that you had was in college and you're 40 years of age, you do not have any protection from the measles. But when you get it naturally, that goes the natural method by way of the barrier, by way of the macrophage, the antigen presenting cell, and then into the helper T cell, and then into the killer T cell, then you actually do have what you would know as lifetime immunity, because you have what are known as memory T cells. Even with a low antibody count, you still have circulating memory T cells that last a very, very, very long time. And I will always go back to this, guys, is when you look at, for example, measles. People laughed about it in the 1960s saying, oh my gosh, Johnny has measles, I'm sending my kids over there to get the measles as well. But then they scared you into because 1 in 1,000 people were having a permanent effect from it. If that makes sense, then you have to ask the question, why did that 1 in 1,000, that 1 in 500, why were they devastated by a virus that 499 kids had no problems with it? And then start looking backwards and to say, what was going on with their immune system? And this comes down to, guys, seed of the soil. But I will tell you this, my kids, all 4 of them, not had one vaccine. We are the weird family on the block, and I don't care. I don't care one bit, because you know what's really cool is my kids have never been on a drug. They've never been on an antibiotic. They don't have allergies. They don't have asthma. They don't have chronic illness. They have none of those things. And I will gladly be the weird family on the block if that means that my kids are healthy. Does it mean that they're never sick? No, they get sick. But we're also, by doing that, we're also priming their immune system to be able to respond to even more stressors later in life, like cancer, for example, because we're even trading in childhood illnesses for an immature immune system later on in life that doesn't even know how to respond to a tumor cell, because they've never, ever challenged their immune system their whole life as well. Okay. Here's another one as well. Thank you for that question. And I get a little bit worked up by it. There's 2 questions on here about cholesterol. What is your opinion on cholesterol pills? Okay. My opinion is I don't like them at all. And here's the reason why. I have been attacked by cardiologists who say the lower your LDL, the better. But the problem is that when you go to a cardiologist, they don't care about anything else that's going on inside of your body. If you look at LDL, LDL is needed, and it's produced by the liver, and it produces it based on need. So if you LDL is elevated, then figure out the reason why it's elevated and work on fixing that. But also remember, when a cardiologist says, yeah, your LDL can be at 0 or 5 or 10, then you have to ask the question, all right, well, doctor, are you actually measuring a person's uh, steroid hormones and seeing what level that they are at? Because remember, LDL, low density lipoprotein, is the carrier for the cholesterol, and that goes around to certain organs, specifically things like the testes, the ovaries, and the adrenal glands, in order to be able to deliver the cholesterol for hormone production. Okay. And in fact, there was a cardiologist who said your cells make their own cholesterol. And I'm like, well, where's the cholesterol coming from? So cholesterol is needed for your estradiol, cortisol, testosterone. It's needed for your adrenal function. It's needed by the ovaries. It's needed by the testicles. It's needed by the adrenal glands. And also remember, every cell has a membrane that is composed of cholesterol. So it's absolutely needed. Now, are there some people who have genetic issues in which their cholesterol, is at 350, 400? Yes, there are. And in fact, in those cases, which is very, very rare, we're talking about hypercholesterolemia, which is maybe 1%, of the total population, then probably, yeah, them being on it is good. And that's where modern medicine comes in. But the only problem is modern medicine tries to cover everything. And they say we have a monopoly on every single treatment, every single thing that you do. And a different opinion means it's completely, bogus, completely terrible, because we own the monopoly on all of healthcare. No, you don't. You own the monopoly on treating things with drugs, but that does not equal healthcare as well. So you have to figure out why it happens. But I've had so many people who have had so many different side effects with joint pain, muscle aches, low energy fatigue, things like that. Is get it tested properly, see where you're at, and then figure out. But I've also seen people who have things like Lyme disease, in which their cholesterol is always at 300, 350, and it's actually the body trying to protect itself from the biotoxin. So it's wrapping cholesterol like around the nerve system and things like that, which is why the cholesterol tends to go up as well. Okay. Nancy Strand, always good to see you. Hope you're well in Oregon. Keep going strong. Mhm. So let's see if we've got talks. So sorry guys, I'm just scrolling through. From Instagram, my niece, 5 years old, has allergies. We thought it was caused by food until since 1 week ago. They tested her. None of the 55 allergens were found. What do you think? What I think is that they just tested an IgE reaction and they didn't test for IgEs. If they were doing a scratch test or something like that, then they're looking at an IgE reaction is only 2% of your immune response. Like that's it. IgEs you don't have as many as antibodies as you do as IgG, which is the most abundant. IgA, I believe, is the next abundant. IgE, I think, is the least abundant antibody. In which basically, if you have that as a food allergy, that really means that your immune system is really hurting as well. So you have to test for an IgG food allergy, not just IgE. And then you ask the doctor to do it, and that's all they do is an IgE. And then they say, nope, you're fine. And we're actually looking at an IgG food allergy response. Okay. Why do some people have unhealthy diets and fail to develop chronic disease? Well, I would actually say this, because I talk about this a lot, because we actually have um, a we don't know what health is, because we all think that health is about eating right and exercising and getting enough sleep. And I will argue this is like, if you actually fell down and you scraped your knee and you have a big injury on your knee and you have a big scab there, do you need to run a 5K, take a nap, and eat some kale in order for that to heal? And so we're just conditioned to believe that as long as we do those things, then we're going to be healthy. But you've seen people do it perfectly, die at 55 of cancer, and then you see people, your Uncle Larry, who is lighting their, their cigarette on their birthday candle on their 90th birthday next to a 12-pack of beer. I will tell you this is that some people, they will heal better. Some people have the ability to be able to detox better. Some people have the ability, they have better liver enzyme function. They have better repair mechanisms. They have, they get mitochondrial damage. They're able to recover from it. They have better antioxidant protection. Maybe maybe Warren Buffett sleeps for 9 hours, and some people who eats healthy only sleeps for 5. So there's a lot of different reasons why, but everyone wants to, say that it's all genetic and all genetic and all genetic. But essentially what it comes down to is that person's healing better. And then also figure out, well, maybe they have the ability to be able to neutralize free radicals better. Maybe they have the ability to be able to detox better, things like that. Okay. Can typhoid infection lead to leaky gut syndrome? Yes, I believe that it absolutely can. Because it's a gastrointestinal bug. And that's why food poisoning, things like that, can cause a lot of gastrointestinal barrier dysfunction as well. All right, we got, I think, time for 1 or 2 more questions. Do you think that, Paul asks from YouTube, what do you think? Do you think eating testicle can boost testosterone without testosterone replacement therapy side effects? You're going to be giving it to constituents, but it won't necessarily increase testosterone unless you're handling all of these other things. So obviously, eating like a bull testicle will already have things like zinc, but sometimes too, it can be a head injury, for example, pituitary damage, and then you need to start working on the signaling of the pituitary to the testicle. So when they talk about the the axis, okay, the hypothalamus pituitary testicle axis, the hypothalamus pituitary to the thyroid axis, and how all of those actually communicate. So make sure that you're avoiding the sugars. Sometimes we need to reconnect it quite a bit if they've been on testosterone replacement therapy for a long period of time and they go off of it and the body takes a while for it to start to make testosterone. At that point, we give them things like tribulus and things like that in order for them to start. But as far as having the side effects, the answer is no. You're not going to get the side effects from it because you're not going to be getting your testosterone levels up to, 10, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 from doing that. Okay. All right, we got time for one more question. All right, last one, guys, and then I have to go, so I apologize. Poison ivy season, text my wife. By her just looking at it, first case of blisters this weekend, suggests reduce the animal allergic reaction and reduce the inflammation and itch. If it truly is poison ivy, just remember this, guys. If it's poison ivy, if you have poison ivy, you other people can't get it. So it's the oil that causes the skin inflammation, and the rash that you see is not. You can't pass it on from person to person. That is an immune reaction from the oil from the poison ivy. So when people say, "Oh, don't touch me, I have poison ivy," you can't get it from other people. You can't get it. It's not contagious. But the biggest thing is if she's easily get it, please go look, make sure that you're taking care of the poison ivy around your property and the poison oak, poison sumac as well. Make sure that you remove it or spray it. But the annual allergic reaction, reduce the inflammation and the itch. I would say one of the things that you could do, this might not be the best answer, is we tell people a lot when they have a lot of allergies, things like that, seasonal allergies, spring allergies, things like that, is get on stinging nettle. We have it in a bottle. We say probably about 4 teaspoons, and it'll take about 2 or 3 weeks in order for it to start working. But it will take down an allergy reaction when it comes to things like hay fever or tree pollen, grass pollen and things like that. But you need to take it 2 to 3 weeks before it really starts to kick in and starts to work. So, all right, awesome. Well, I know that I have people waiting for me right now. I'll take one more question. Are certain emotional health problems directly related to any physical diseases? Okay. Yes, 100%. I will say this. Look at a person with a tremendous amount of like IgE food allergies, and you will see that they suffer tremendously with anxiety. I've seen that clinically clear across the board. And there are certain people, guys, that suffer with things like bipolar disorder, that suffer with anxiety. And yes, it can be an emotional issue. There's no doubt about it. But if we are not addressing physically and how the nerve system is involved, and we're not addressing chemically, there are certain people who even can have SNPs, which are genetic variants, and they cannot break down their catecholamines like adrenaline. If they can't break them down enough, then they have a stress response, and that stress response lasts, instead of for an hour, it can last literally for 4, 5, 6 hours, in which they're always in fight or flight. And that is going to change the brain. There's no doubt about it. But you can actually do genetic testing for it. And then you can also do, you can test for neurotransmitters in the urine and see how they're being produced peripherally. So hopefully that helps. Okay. But yes, the same question as I've seen that you have to address it chemically. Anybody who just says you just need to go on mind-altering medications, they're missing the boat as well. Don't let anybody tell you any different, especially. So, all right, guys. Well, that wraps it up for me. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you share this video. And next week, I'll also be talking about allergies from a different perspective. So, guys, make sure you join me then. Guys, be well, be blessed, and